Hello YouTubers. Today I want to talk to you about apostasia, the falling away. Why is this an important subject? I feel it's important because lately I've run across a ton of very bad scholarship on YouTube and the internet that tries to make an argument for the word apostasia in Greek, meaning rapture. These bogus scholars have the audacity to claim that the Greek word apostasia can legitimately be translated rapture. Yet not one single credible scholar that I've been able to find agrees with that. And not one Bible translation that I've searched, that is 50 of the top Bible translations that I've searched, translates apostasia as rapture. Not a one. Furthermore, in ancient secular literature, first century Koine Greek literature, the term apostasy or apostasia is never translated as anything other than falling away from a belief system, from an ideology. One of the things that inspired me to make this video is the fact that I wrote a book some years back about Chuck Missler. It's called The Covering. And I tacked Perry Stone on the back end. We're not going to talk about Perry Stone. Chuck Missler is one of the proponents of translating apostasia as rapture. He makes that argument. And when I first heard that, I thought there is something very wrong with that idea. And let me read you the quote from Chuck Missler's own mouth. Missler says, quote, "But I want to talk to you about this falling away first. The word in the Greek is apostasia." So far so good. He's right. That word can mean one of two things. It can mean a falling away of the faith, like apostasy. It can also mean the falling or catching away. Now, immediately when I read that, I had a problem. How can falling and catching mean the same thing? They're opposite ideas, yet Chuck mixes those two together. But it gets worse. He says, you can make a competent case, if you're a Greek expert, that this term apostasia is referring to the rapture. Then he says, but I'm not going to make that case, because I don't need to. When I read this statement from Chuck Missler, red flags went up, and I decided I'm going to research his claims. Are there any Greek experts that actually support what he's saying? I couldn't find any legitimate Greek scholars, not a one. And when I say legitimate, I don't mean bogus scholars like Thomas Ice, who is not a Greek scholar, or others like him. I'm talking about the serious Greek scholars. And I'm going to get to that. I'm going to quote them. I couldn't find a single one that agreed with Chuck Missler's statement. His statement, if you're a Greek expert, you can make a case for apostasia, meaning rapture. Well, nobody does. And so that's why Chuck Missler couldn't make a case. That's why he said, but I'm not going to make that case because I don't need to. It's not that he didn't need to, he couldn't. So I'm going to make the case against him on his behalf because I think we need to. Did you know that for the last 2,000 years, the Church unanimously taught that the apostasia was a falling away from the faith? This idea of apostasia, meaning rapture or catching up, is a new and novel idea, and it's promoted mostly by dispensationalists, futurists, and rapturists. But there isn't a shred of historic evidence or scholarly evidence. Furthermore, I researched 50 Bibles, the top ones. None of them translate apostasia as rapture. Not a one. So with that in mind, let's consult the Greek experts. I'll read from my book, The Covering. There it is. Strong's Concordance. Apostasia. Defection. Apostasy. Revolt. Fair enough. Webster's Dictionary. Renunciation of a religious faith. Abandonment of a previous loyalty. Webster's Dictionary, 1928 edition. An abandonment of what one has professed, a total desertion or departure from one's faith or religion. Now let's just stop there for a minute. Who was Webster? Webster was a man who spoke 26 languages, among them Koine Greek. He was an extraordinary linguist, and that's what he had to say about it. Surely he would be considered something of an expert. Let's carry on. Oxford Dictionary. The abandonment or renunciation of a religious or political belief. How about Thayer's Greek lexicon? Falling away, defection, apostasy. We don't see any sense of rapture or catching up in the air. Falling away, apostasy. Now let's turn to Vine's New Testament Expository. That's on page 60 of my book. I quote that. It says, ancient papyri documents used apostasia politically to describe rebels. These were political rebels. They rebelled against a belief system. A political belief system. That's how the term was used outside of Scripture during the 1st century. Robertson's Word Pictures. Apostasia is the late form and is our word apostasy. That's what you find in the King James Bible. Apostasy, falling away. Now here's a quote from the Vocabulary of the Greek Testament, illustrated from the papyri and other non-literary sources, reprinted in 1976. James Moulton and George Milligan. Here's what they had to say about apostasia. In other Koine Greek literature, only the idea of political or religious rebellion is found. No evidence of spatial departure is given. So think about it. They just said there is no religious literature or secular literature that ever uses the term apostasia to mean a physical removal. It's never a spatial departure, ever. And that's what the church taught for 2,000 years. It was a falling away from the faith. And so, I'm going to conclude this short study. But I would really like you, if you're interested in learning more about this and checking these references and doing your own homework, which I do recommend you do, and learning more about Chuck Missler. Because there's a whole bunch of junk that he teaches, and he claims scholarship for. And there's no support. Tons of it. And I lay it out in this book. And I also talk about his plagiarism. Hal Lindsey and Chuck Missler plagiarized Yamauchi's work blatantly and shamelessly. Okay? So I want you to be aware that just because some guy who's popular and has a lot of followers on YouTube tells you that scholars say one thing or another, don't believe them. Check them out for yourself. I've found that typically where you find the most Christians congregating, you also find the worst teaching. Case in point, Joel Osteen's church. Think about that. And today, most Christians are rapture believers. So if you tell them that apostasia means rapture, they're going to love you. If you teach the historic doctrine that apostasia means falling away from the faith, they're not going to like you, because it's not a popular position today. And I leave this thought with you. Let God be true, and every man a liar. Many thanks for listening.